Okay, what tonight's subject is about is if you go on a guided tour trip. Oh look, Gmail's sending me notifications that I'm going live. Isn't that great? Okay, I recently went on a trip to the land of the Bible, as they call it. I went to Israel for 10 days, and I went on a guided trip. And they took us to all these places like, Mount Hermon and Masada and the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea and the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea and Netanya and Bethlehem and Nazareth, and Hebron, Jerusalem. The list goes on. There's this El Megiddo or Megiddo, Tel Megiddo, yeah, Magdala. Let's see here, Tel Hazor, Tel Dan. A Tel in Israeli is a man-made hill. I learned that over this period, but we saw a long list of all these epic locations, and it was just I don't know how to describe it. Words don't fit it really well. It's really tough to describe. But the point is that while I was there, I had all these big plans for my photography. So I carried this entire bag of gear with me. See all this stuff in here? Let me get it around here. Yeah, I took all of that, okay? Because I had all these wonderful ideas and everything, and I was going to take all these. Oh, plus my little video rig that I showed you in a previous one, like plus my video rig. Took all this too. All right. And I learned really quickly that I took way too much stuff. Okay, like the lenses. I took all these lenses. I got out the 75 to 150 Nikkor once. While we was in the motel room, we was on like the 9th floor of a motel, and I was trying to get a couple of long exposure shots down into Jerusalem of an intersection because I was trying to get light trails coming through the red light, and it was just too well illuminated. I didn't have the correct adapter rings, so long story short, that didn't go over so well, and I kind of just threw in the towel on it. But I took the 28 millimeter Nikkor, that basically my favorite lens. I took the 55 millimeter f1.8 Pentax lens I recently got. I took all these lenses plus the 18 to 55 kit lens. Now, the reason I like the 18 to 55 kit lens is it covers a pretty broad range of focal lengths, and it gives you a lot of leverage when you're just shooting, what would you call it, snapshots, more or less, and you're just trying to record memories more than you are trying to, get epic landscapes, So I stuck the 18 to 55 on the camera, and I realized real quick that if I tried to control the aperture so I could get depth of field like I wanted, then the camera was trying to meter real wonky. It was trying to push shutter speeds up to ridiculous levels or real low shutter speeds. It was picking really odd parameters. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to lock down the camera to certain parameters. I wonder what's going on with this. That's really strange. But I wanted to lock down the camera to certain parameters and then come back to a way of controlling the exposure that was simple, easy, and effective. And what I found worked was, first thing you do is you lose this thing. Throw that away. Throw it in the camera bag. And then, let's see, where are they at? I got some step rings in here somewhere. Oh, here they are. Get you a couple of them handy dandy step rings, only because my ND filter don't fit. Then get you one of these 8-stop variable ND filters. All right. So what I would do here, because what I was running into was there was hardly a cloud in the sky. I think we had one day where there was some cloud cover. So it was really brilliant sun on really, really light landscapes because it's all desert and it's super bright. And then the shadows would be super dark because of that. And so what I was wanting to do was not have to chase exposure. So, because I learned pretty quick that the exposure in the camera, it was running itself ragged trying to keep up. But what I found was if I set the sunlight exposure, or the shadow exposure for the ND filter, it's got a little gauge on it here. I bring this little marker around to minimum, right in there somewhere. And I get my exposure on my histogram to where it looked pretty good, you know, in the center or wherever the scene was leading it, to where that was on minimum for shadows. When I went out in the bright sun, all I had to do was just run this up till the histogram moved back over to the middle. I could literally run my finger on the edge of the ND filter, and while I'm focusing, I just run it around and watch that histogram shift over, get my composition. My focus is right here. I was running continuous focus. I just held it down while I was doing that. And then when I got the focus like I wanted, I just fired the shutter, and it would go really fast. And it allowed me to compensate for the bright sun and the dark shadows really quickly. And it was real effective. I'm wondering, okay. Interesting. There's something going on with this live stream. I don't know if it's actually functioning properly or if people are dropping out because of connection issues, but it's like the numbers keep bouncing around on it. It's kind of strange. Anyway, this turned into my default run and gun rig for the next 10 days. I didn't change the camera lens setup pretty much at all after that, which kept sensor dust to a minimum. But at the end of the event, you might say, I figured out that this just worked. I would run about F9 in the brightest part of the day, and I'd back it down to F4 when it got into the evening. You know, I would occasionally in the city, I'd run slow shutter speeds like 1/15 of a second to try and do some motion blur photography because I really enjoyed doing that. I tried to shoot some street photos as well, but it just worked out as the 10-day trip went on, because we was in a tour bus and we would stay in different hotels along the way. So first day I took the video rig, the camera bag, a shoulder bag that had some extra cables in it and snacks, a water bottle. The next, you know, after a day or two of that, I started leaving the red bag in the hotel room, and I just carried, and I'd take the camera bag and the video rig. I got a good bit of video footage. There's quite a bit of video footage I'm going to put together into videos. Hey, Bass Angler, what's up? Thank you for logging in. I appreciate it. I'm talking about my rig I put together for my trip to Israel. But I got like the next day, I started figuring out that I wanted to take some photos and not so much video, because I was spending a lot of time messing with the video camera. So about 4 days before the end, I ditched the video camera. I broke it down and put it away, and just got it completely out of the scene. By the second day, I had done stripped it down and gotten rid of the light setup entirely to where it was a much lighter rig on its own. But by the time we got to Jerusalem on the 6th day, all I was going out of the hotel room with was this camera, a water bottle, and I wasn't even taking extra memory cards. I'd charge it up that night. It'll run all day on 3 batteries, and it has 3 in it. So I never had issue with running out of battery or memory, because I had 128 gigabyte cards in it. So, you know, I got 1/4 of a terabyte of cards in the stupid thing. So you have to shoot a lot of frames to use up all that. bugs are coming out. But so yeah, by the end of the trip, I was taking this camera with this ND filter on it and nothing else. Well, actually, let's see if I've got them in here. They should still be in here. I ain't stripped it down yet. Toothpicks. I don't know what I've done with them. They may be stuck down in one of the posts. I got some lens tissues. It's the little cloth papers that you wipe smudges off your lens with, because there's no hood here. So I was forever getting fingerprints on this. I'd bump it with my sweaty arm, get a big sweat stain across it, or I'd run into somebody else and bump into them, get sweat on it because it was hot. So I was constantly cleaning that ND filter. And as you can see, let's see, it didn't scratch it up hardly at all, if any. The glass on these good quality ND filters is phenomenal. This is a Hoya. I think it's a 1.5 to 8 stop is what this one says it is. And it works really well. Now, if you go all the way past max, this one will do that cross phenomenon, whatever that's about. So you just know where you can max it out at. And if you're looking through the EVF, yeah, I got a B&W as well as this Hoya. I don't think I have the B&W in the bag though. Yeah, I like both of them as well. Oh, there's the lens tissues. Yeah, see, thought I had them still in there. Oh boy, there we go. These things are worth their weight in gold. They're just them little thin paper lens cleaners. I went through probably half a dozen or more of these. I use probably 1 or 2 every day. But yeah, it got to the point where I carried these. I had a little pack that I carried my personal effects in to keep it out of my pockets, because they say pickpockets are real bad in the old city of Jerusalem. So they gave us these little over-the-shoulder bags so we could keep all our stuff right here in front of us and keep control over our personal effects. I threw this in there and the case to the ND filter, so that once you once the sun goes down, you just screw this off, throw it in the case, and then just run the camera lens open like normal. And I would keep that. I'd keep the lens hood in there. And then that was a real boom, because by having the lens hood, I was able to stick it on there and protect the lens from getting smudges on it. I'd have, seriously, by the end of the week, I had these 3 items and the camera. And that's all the photography equipment I was carrying with me by the end of the week. Let's see, I got the photo vlogs. Thank you. Now this is the 18 to 55 kit lens from Fuji. It's the one that came with the camera, and it's a very good lens for general. There's a darn mosquito. Hey Axe, how you doing? Thank you for stopping by. But this is a really good lens for snapshot photography / just like I was being a classic tourist. We were going to all the tourist destinations, and what I learned was the tourist thing, when you do a guided tour, it's fairly fast paced. You're not there long, and you don't have a lot of time to do detail setups and do a lot of scouting for a good Photoshop. You know, you just don't have much time. So with this, I was able to get reasonable cool compositions and get, you know, and capture memories and get photos of the family. Bass Angler's asking, how was it over there? Were the people nice? I want to make that trip someday. The people on the street are kind of, they keep to themselves. Unless they know, when you could tell when they know each other, they were real chatty. But the places we were in, we were staying in more of the Jewish kind of controlled areas. And I say that because it's a very secular country. There is a very strong Muslim contingent. Christian contingent is kind of small, and then a big Jewish contingent. And everybody knows the Jewish people and the Arabs don't get along, and so they stay to themselves. They self-segregate, and it's because they just don't like each other. But yet they live next door to one another, and we were staying in the more Jewish controlled areas because the IDF patrols it better, I guess you might say, because the Arab population doesn't have to participate in the conscripted military service. So the Jews are the only ones that actually do that job, so they tend to watch out for their own. And you'll see lots of like off-duty military personnel with their carbine walking the street, going wherever they're going, just walking down the sidewalk with their rifle slung. And then, of course, you see the police. In Jerusalem, they had 3 or 4 different kinds of police. Every little weird scenario thing had a police department. It's kind of like Washington, D.C. But so you'd see different uniforms, but they'd all be clumped together, you know, working together. But you'd see military personnel in certain key areas. But we never really had any trouble at all. We went to the West Bank. We went to Jericho, Bethlehem. Bethlehem's in the West Bank, and so is Hedron. It's where Abraham's tomb is, but Hebron, that's what it is. But we went to all of those and we didn't have any trouble at all. Yes, he says that he bet it was awesome to see Christ's tomb and all those places you read about in the Bible. It was surreal. That's the word I would use. It was just didn't seem like, you know, you read about it and you know the places exist, but you don't ever make the connection till you're standing there. But now it doesn't look anything like it was described in the Bible, because they built everywhere there was some significant events that Christ had, they built a church on top of it. It's like everywhere. There's these Catholic churches everywhere. And like in Bethlehem, where the hill is that the shepherds were visited by the angel, there's a church there. Everywhere you go, there's a church sitting on some important location. And I think there was 2 or 3 on the Mount of Olives across the valley from Jerusalem. But you do get to kind of see how close everything is too. Like, it wasn't really that far to Bethlehem, to Jerusalem, as well as Nazareth was a pretty good piece, but it wasn't that far away. There's a lot of desert. There's a lot of, like, the northern half of the country, and I use country in the loosest possible way because it's a tiny little country. They said you can drive from one end of the country to the other in 6 hours. It's small. They claim it's the size of New Jersey, but I think it's skinnier and longer. Maybe it's got the same square area. How much is the guided tour there? Is a guided tour more expensive than you do-it-yourself photography? Yeah, the guided tour costs more because they prearranged the hotels for us, the meals. The meals were included in the package. They provided a bus and drove us. They had a driver drive us. We didn't have to even come up with I mean, they met us at the airport, and after the 10-day trip, dropped us off at the airport. I had to drive 0. And when you get into Jerusalem traffic, you understand why that's a big deal. That's a very convoluted city that if you don't know your way around, you're gonna be lost, bad lost. It's a messed up city as far as driving. But it had of course, it covered the tour guide's price. It was basically all inclusive, except for some lunches. Some of the lunches weren't covered. We had to pay for them out of pocket. Either that or bring snacks. You know, it just worked out to where we didn't have to really come up with a whole lot of anything. They had bottled water on the van that we could buy, and it was reasonably priced. So pretty much everybody just bought the bottled water rather than trying to buy it somewhere else and bring it. because he had one of those coolers that was a refrigerator, so it was always cold. Worked out, but get you about 300, 400 shekels before you go, which is about $100. You might want a little more than that. I mean, if you eat every day and you want to pay in shekels, you might want to get you maybe 2,000 shekels. They're about 3.5 to 1. Did Netanyahu win the election? I really don't know. It was going to happen. The election happened the day after we left because they were talking about it, about how they had to go the next morning and vote. I don't know who won it. I should have. Can y'all hear the drag strip over there? It's right over there. Brainerd Optimus drag strip. This is testing tune night. So on Friday nights they do testing tunes. So it's just like you go over and pay a simple track fee and they let you run the track and work on your times or whatever. So y'all can hear them. Dude, there was one with a supercharger or a turbo or something earlier that sounded like a jet engine taking off when it come off the line. There's lots of whine from turbos. I don't know, probably triple turbocharged or something to hear it this far away. But yeah, the guided tour wound up, honestly, I think it was about $4,400 a person. And that covered airfare from Atlanta International Airport all the way to Tel Aviv, to Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. And that was a stopover in Frankfurt. You have to change planes in Frankfurt, basically to go anywhere in Europe. It all happens through Frankfurt International Airport, apparently. But you fly on Lufthansa airline, way better than the U.S. airlines that I've rode on. They, like, you know how the airlines in the U.S. want to sell you Cokes and all this? Lufthansa comes out and they're pouring wine for you. I mean, it's like everything on their menu was complimentary. They gave us coffee, all we wanted. They would come down there with their little cart and they had all sorts of stuff on it. They would just pass it out. If you wanted Coke, sure, they didn't care. They had seriously everything you could think of. It was all complimentary. That was a lot of revving for an 1/8 mile run. Normally they don't take nearly that long. Sound like his throttle was stuck. but I like Lufthansa. It was a really nice airline. Let's see, it's a long ride. Be ready for that. Going over, you ride with the jet stream going over, so it's like 8 hours to Frankfurt and another 4 hours from Frankfurt to Tel Aviv. You wind up, it took us almost 24 continuous hours to leave Atlanta and walk out of Ben Gurion Airport and after going through the passport controls. Which, to passport into and out of Israel is an interesting thing. It takes forever. It's they have multiple layers of security. Like my little camera bag got searched probably 2 or 3 times before I made it out to the baggage claim. They're very thorough in their security. They've had enough trouble in the past. Probably a Big Smoky burnout. Yeah, Hans Photo Vlogs asked, is that a mobile house in the backyard? This is a camper, is what we call them here. Let's see, I can pan it around a little bit here. It's a, we bought this camper probably 7 years ago, and we really enjoy it. Set that back in place. Yeah, we've got it set up here in a campground in Chattanooga. It's like a home away from home, kind of a crash pad of sorts. A country with borders like we should be. Yeah, about that. Well, thank you. We went to the Jordan River. There's a place just outside of Jericho where you go down to the Jordan River, and they've got like a big concrete thing built down to the water's edge, and people get baptized into Jordan, you know, and you can do it symbolically, or you can actually get your baptizing done there, I guess, if you happen to be on that trip when you did it. But you bring your own minister. They don't provide a minister. But what they do provide is 2 IDF soldiers. The Israeli Defensive Forces, their army, has 2 soldiers stationed there, because literally the other side of the Jordan River, which is, my camper is wider than the Jordan River is at that point. It's probably, I think she said it's 6 meters wide, and I would guess that she was about right, about 25 foot. It was a strong creek at that point. You could wade across it real easy. And the other bank was the Kingdom of Jordan, and they had their guy over there with his rifle. But yeah, they were doing photo ops. Them soldiers were like, I bet while we was there, them 2 girls did probably 40 pictures. We got in line. Sierra got her picture made with them. Teresa made her selfie with them. They liked Teresa so well, they made a picture with Teresa. But yeah, fully kitted out soldiers. But they have conscripted service. Yeah, it was pretty cool. But they have conscripted service. After you graduate high school, you join the military and spend 2 years in the military, whether you want to or not. It's just part of the deal. And then you get out of the military, or you can career it if you want, you know. But yeah, everybody does their 2 years or so. And like when they issue your weapon to you, our bus driver served in the IDF. The tour guide, she immigrated from Sweden when she was 25, or she was just old enough she didn't have to do the military service. So she didn't do it, but he did. He said they give you your rifle and a copy of the Bible. And that he said they don't take the gun back till you get done with your service. That's your gun until you're done with the military, and you keep it with you at all times. So we'd see them walking down the sidewalk. They'd be in street clothes. They'd have that carbine thrown over their shoulder, and nobody gave them a second look. I kept trying to get a decent picture of it, and it just never worked out to where I could get a reasonable photo without bothering them. So I never did get that photo. I'd ride around in the tour bus up against the window with my camera at the ready, waiting to see if somebody would be walking down the sidewalk with their carbine, but never got that picture. I just thought that was interesting. I mean, they'd be out middle of town, no big deal, in the market, have their carbine. Nobody cared. And you know what they also don't have? School shootings. You know, put that together. Teach kids responsibility young. They don't do dumb crap when they grow up. Exactly. All right. Back to the kit at hand. When I started out, I was carrying the XT3, which I broke it. Really, dude? He'll be done in a second. Like I said, it's only 8th mile. He can't go much further. This knob is the ISO knob on the XT3. Let me get the light glare off of it. There you go. You can see this underneath it. That's your shutter control, whether you pick single frame or you pick high-speed burst or panoramic mode. All that's with that little selector switch. And then on this side, you can actually see what the mode is. If I get the camera still enough, you can see all the modes are on that sub dial right there. When I flip this switch, it selects them. Problem is, I've done something. I've bumped this knob, and now it's got enough resistance that if I turn it right, let's see, you can see it trying to push the knob. It'll change selections on me. I've used it so much over in Israel that I've about wore it back in. You can see it trying to move it. It would push it over, and Master G in the house. How you doing, Long Rider? That thing would, it would change my setting to the double exposure mode and mess me up bad. Now, I don't know what the deal is there. I bumped that knob, bent the shaft on it or something, and it screwed it up. But yeah, I've used it so much while I was over there It's still stiff, but it does rotate a lot smoother than it did. But I was afraid I was gonna have to send it back to Fuji and have them replace it and just pay to fix it, because it ain't a warranty issue. I dropped it or something because it was working perfectly, and then all at once one day it didn't. So I'm thinking I've bumped it against something, because it has rolled around in the truck floorboard a time or two. But that'd be on me. That ain't on Fuji. Let's see here. I got some notes. Oh, let's do some current events. All right. Has anybody seen the Fuji X Pro 3 announcement with the goofy hidden monitor? Why would you do that? You have to fold the back down to find the hidden special Mario Brothers prize monitor. If you're going to put the monitor on the camera, put it where you can use it without having to do some kind of oddball functionality. I thought that's the silliest thing I've ever seen. You know, I get the idea of the whole rangefinder concept. I see the reason behind the rangefinder camera, and putting the monitor on the inside is to give you that simulated film feel. But I think you could just as easily, I know on my XT3, you could just select it to EVF only, to where it never powers up the display, and you don't have to do that. So if you did want to review your photos, you don't have to fold down the screen to see them. You can just hit the button. I thought, that's just silly. But, you know, then it's made out of titanium. Yeah, it might be cast titanium. I seen the chassis. It looks like it's a casting. If I had to guess, it's probably aluminum or magnesium. Titanium would be expensive. It'd make the price of the camera go way up. Is it really going to be a $2,500 camera? Long Rider just said it's going to be a $2,500 camera. Wow, I don't know. I don't know if anybody's going to spend $2,500 on that camera. I mean, no, titanium ain't cheap, but man, they're gambling there. That's a lot of money for that little bitty camera. I was expecting that camera to clock in at like 1,700 max, and that's stretching it in my book. The X Pro, I'm sorry, I'm just not that into that rangefinder concept. I don't know. It's so small. It is, you know, you get that small footprint, but if I was going to fool with that X Pro, it'd probably be an X Pro 1 just to play with it. Wow. I didn't know that. Long Rider just said the graphite colored X Pro 2 is $2,000. I know. Yeah, like Bass Angler said, it's no XT3. XT3 is rocks. Like I said, when I was on that trip, I charged this at night in the hotel room. The next day, I wouldn't even take the charger. I'd just take the camera. It'd run all day. One day, I know for certain that I took 700 photos, and I went through 1.5 batteries. So yeah, at that point, I didn't even worry about my batteries going dead while I was out, because every evening we came back to the hotel. Every evening, because that was where supper was served. Every evening we would be at the hotel by 5:30 at the latest, to be able to get cleaned up and go eat, because the buffets didn't come out till 6:30. Oh, there's a story there too. There's a lot of tradition in the Jewish faith that you don't realize they do until you have to operate within those parameters a little bit. But like, they have a thing, their Sabbath, they call it Shabbat. That's the Hebrew word for it. And it starts at about 6:30 on Friday and runs 25 hours until about 7:30 on Saturday. And that's their Sabbath. And on their Sabbath, they ain't allowed to work. And their rabbis have determined work to be like the most least significant little thing. Like tearing a page out of this book could be classified as work. as far as the rabbis are concerned. Operating an ink pen, seriously, it's that petty. The least little thing could be classified as work. So yeah, they can't work, can't carry money or anything. They don't buy and sell. All the stores are closed. It's that simple. You have to go to the Christian or the Arab quarter if you want to buy something. Those people will be open, but the Jewish, no, you just forget it. Literally, I drank more instant coffee in those 10 days than I think I've drank in the last 10 years. I have actually acquired a taste for Nescafe instant coffee. There might even, no, I got them all out of, I had them in my camera bag. I learned to take the surplus ones from the little complimentary thing in the hotel room and carry them with me so I would have some, because I like to drink more than they want to give you. Let's see. Yes. Yeah, he's Bass Angler says they honor the Sabbath like it's explained in Isaiah, and then Acts Mar says they hire non-Jews to do the work stuff that they do have to do. Oh, okay. Well, they call it Shabbat. They kept saying Shabbat, but it's interesting how you have a different phrasing of it. But yeah, they would have these hot water kettles instead of like a little coffee maker in the room. They have a thing to make hot water for tea, and they would, it's the kind that has the little hot plate that's electrically coupled, like inductive. You put water in it, set it on it, hit a button, and heat the water up. So, and I got to the point where I even like Turkish coffee, and that's the kind with the grounds in it. It was good. I actually brought some of that home from my shop foreman so I could see if he liked it. You learn real quick, don't drink all of it. You leave a little. But the instant wasn't bad. After you drink it a few days, you get to where you kind of like it. But yeah, on Sunday morning, they'd be hot coffee. And that's something else they don't do is have coffee with supper. You can't get a cup of coffee at supper like we do here in America. They don't even offer it. You have to go to the coffee shop and buy a cup of coffee if you want one at supper. The restaurants won't even brew it. Just won't do it. Which I thought was kind of odd. Yes. Yeah, he's right. Long Rider says they can't turn on or off the AC. Like, they cook all the food for Saturday on Friday. Like they have boiled eggs. They do a lot with boiled eggs. So what they'll do is they'll boil these big dishes, and they'll just put the eggs in there with the dish, and the eggs will boil down in the bottom while they're cooking soups. And so the eggs will be typically there's 3 different colors of eggs. There'll be a real dark one, like almost a black shell, and it's taking on the color of like if they're cooking like roast beef. They'll put whole eggs in there and boil the eggs while they're cooking the roast beef. And then they just have them out for Saturday, and they'll put them on the bar. They'll cut all the fruit up. You can always tell because the watermelon's a little mushy by the end of the day on Saturday. That you can tell they cut it up on Friday. But yeah, they have it all ready. And then, like you said, they'll hire Christians to put it out and set it and take it up. But yeah, it's just unusual how they do that. I wonder why we observe Sabbath on the wrong day. Dude, C2 Disciple says elevators stop at every floor so they don't have to push a button, and he's not kidding. They'll actually, in the hotels we stayed in, all of them but one would do that. And they would have one with a sign that would say non-Shabbat elevator. And the rest of them, yeah, the door would open and then it would go up a floor, and it'd open, it'd go up a floor, and then when it got to the top, it'd go down one, and they just non-stop ran up and down for 25 hours. The night we got there, we went to a town called Netanya, which is halfway to Caesarea from Tel Aviv, and we stayed on the Mediterranean Sea. We get there after this Shabbat thing has started, so the maintenance guy takes us to the service elevator. We're in the penthouse on the 17th floor. We had to ride the service elevator because the other ones wouldn't work. Yeah, the TVs are in little cabinets. Let's see here. In Jerusalem, the hotel we stayed in was the Lady Stern on Jaffa Road, and those TVs were actually mounted on the wall, but all of them up to that point were in cabinets. You're right. Yeah, Bass Angler was wondering if we were observing the Sabbath on the wrong day. Yeah, it's really gray. Depends on when you decide to start your week. If your first day of your week is Monday, then Sunday is your Sabbath. So that's the way I've always believed. And it's, there's no concrete timetable that shows all the way back to the beginning, or at least back to when Christ was crucified. There's a big gap in the timeline. So, we've lost that date roll. So we don't know exactly what day the Sabbath is at this point. We really have no way of honestly knowing, with the whole Dark Ages thing and no one recording history for hundreds of years. You just kind of got to do your best. They were explaining it to us. The Christians observe Sunday, the Jews observe Saturday, and the Arabs or the Islamic people observe Friday. So everybody has a different day. So, yeah, the Muslims always do it on Friday. Because she was explaining that to us, that they all do it on a different day. But they all have their holy day. Let's see. Next piece of news, 60 megapixel Nikons. The emo reflector was even a buzz today with that one. I would like to see that 60 megapixel D6. That would be a monster. A D860 with a 60 megapixel sensor. They claim. Yeah, it's a Sony copy. It's probably not a Sony copy. It's probably a Sony sensor. Nikon's been known to do business with Sony in the past. That ain't a new thing for them. I think Bass Angler was saying earlier that his D7200 has a Toshiba sensor in it. Nikon's never made their own sensors. They've always bought them from someone else. Canon makes their own sensors. Sony makes their own sensors. I think Fuji makes their sensors because they make the X-Trans, or they're buying the X-Trans sensor. They're not using Sony gear. I haven't done the research to know if Fuji makes that sensor or if they're buying them from someone else, but I know they're not Sony's. I'm also in the approach path to the Chattanooga airport. Gotta love a Pratt & Whitney turbo engine. Turbo. Sounds like it's about to fly apart the whole time it's running. So Sony does make the Fuji sensor. I thought somebody else made those sensors for them. Huh. That's bizarre. If Sony's making the sensor, then why does Fuji have that weird color science where the green is the dominant color, I wonder? Oh, so the X-Trans is the cover glass. That's where that comes in. Oh, okay. And I guess that's where it gets that weird green color effect, because it dopes the greens a little bit. If you shoot raw, it doesn't matter. And if you shoot in a film simulation mode, it's going to adjust them to match that old film mode. So the colors have never bothered me. carried this silly power pack the whole time I was over there. Not once did I get out of the camera bag. I'm gonna use it for the first time tonight to keep my vlogging rig operational. Let's see. Still got 74% charge because I've done used it. I think Sierra did get it out one night and use it. Let me plug this in right here. Did it take off? Yeah. Yeah, it's working. There we go. Yeah. Oh, and the next piece of news is Photokina. Have y'all seen that? Like half the major heavy hitter photographer or camera brands have basically don't have floor space on the Photokina floor map and have backed out. Basically, trade shows are dead, is what that's telling you. And I think that's the one that's in Germany, and it used to be every other year, and then they changed it a year or two ago where it happens every year. And that basically super saturated the trade show market. And now people are backing out. Oh, excuse me. The jet lag has not wore off yet. The first night I bet I slept 14 hours. I don't sleep well on airplanes. I have a hard time with it. So I cat nap here and there, but the travel is about 24 total hours. And by the time I got home, I strung out pretty bad. So I slept, seriously, I think it was about 12, 14 hours that first night. The next night, it was about 9. Now, normally I'm a 5.5 hours a night guy. Man, I just ain't able to catch up. Yep, that was something important. Uh-oh, where'd it go? There it is. Oh, it's my little pack to my ND filter. But I found that it was just faster to run the ND on there. I would set the ISO at like 640, which is, there's 2 sharp points with every sensor when it comes to ISO for some reason, and you can look at it. They've charted it. It's mathematically proven. Minimum ISO. Give me a second. He's almost done, and he's done. Okay. You got minimum base ISO, which on this one is 160, and then you have another point which is a few stops above that, and on the XT3 it's ISO 640. So I set it to ISO 640. Yeah, probably was. It sounded like it, didn't it? And then I'll set my shutter speed because I'm trying to freeze motion with snapshots for my, because what I do is I'll print a photo book of memories so we can look back over it and remember where we went. And I want them to be fairly sharp, so I'm not trying to do artistic motion blur. Come on, dude. There's this burnout. He's heated his tires up. Get lined up on the tree. Here we go. But we went over there a few weeks ago and watched a few. But anyway, I set my shutter speed to 1/125th or 1/250th of a second, and then I'd set my f-stop at about f9 or f11. Depending on how bright the sun was, I would try to run f9 if I could, if it wouldn't just run overexposed. And that gave me a nice deep depth of field, so I'd get fairly sharp photos. And then I could just run the ND and push the histogram till it was in the middle, and or you know, if I had a lot of sand in the frame, I'd move it up some so I could get the look of bright sand. You know, and you miss it occasionally, but for the most part, it worked really well. I started unpacking the photos. This particular ND is the Hoya. I've got a B&W at home that fits another lens. I think it fits, I'm trying to remember which one I got that one for. That B&W is a nice filter. It's expensive too. And then I got, there's Teresa.
I have to make my hand go slower, it makes it blur.
Yeah. They'll pop in here in a second. You need to get a shot of those big blocks doing a burnout. I have some of those photos. We went over there one night Hi, boss lady.
Hi. Did you tell her I accidentally ate the...
No, I'm saving that for later.
I'll just talk to Charlotte for an hour. I'm gonna go take a shower.
Okay. But here's the ND filter I really like. This is the adapter that adapts the X mount to the Nikkor, and they make this in a whole slew of them. But inside of the mount is a variable ND filter. This is a Photodiox ND throttle is what they call this. So you got your ND filter right here, all right? And it goes from min to max, and it's not free spinning. It has hard stops from there to there. And then it has, let me see, okay. If you look close, you can see right here, it's got the aperture control, and it's clickless. That's minimum to maximum, all right? What that allows you to do is that allows you to do aperture pulls for video. The ND throttle is kind of intended for video shooting, so they give you that functionality with that aperture control function. So I always have to be real mindful of what setting it's on, so that it actually doesn't open up the aperture and leave it open, and then this aperture ring doesn't do anything, you know. But I really like this ND throttle because it basically turns all of my Nikkor lenses into ND filter fitted lenses with no step rings. And it doesn't add any to the length, and I can run my lens hoods. This thing is the bomb. And it's about the price of a good variable ND. If you watch their website, these will go on sale. I think this one shipped to my door was $55. You buy an adapter, it'll cost you an adapter with a aperture ring in it will cost you $30 from Amazon. They sell them with the little aperture ring on them. And then a good variable ND will cost you anywhere from $40 to $100, depending on whose you buy. You buy a B&W, it's over $100. You know, the Hoya's $50-$60. And I got this with a coupon code off the Photodiox site for about $55, $57. It wasn't bad at all. When I saw how cheap it was that day, I went ahead and pulled the trigger on one just to see. I really like it. Now it's heavy. There's a lot going on in here, so there's a lot of aluminum. It's all machined aluminum. It's really well made, but it does make the lens a lot heavier. But I really like the compact functionality that it brings to the table, man. I really like that thing. Yeah, they in no way paid me to say that, by the way. That's the only thing from them I've ever owned. I might have a dumb adapter or two, like an M42 screw mount adapter, but I just buy whichever one of those is the cheapest one on Amazon, whether it's theirs or KNF Concepts or whoever. But this I wanted strictly from them for this application because I wanted to run Nikkor lenses with an ND filter. But they didn't give it to me. I bought it. But I did wait till they had a coupon code. But yeah, I've got some of those, and I don't have them with me. They're not variables though. I bought some ND filters that are called Fire Storm or Fire something. It's in the name. The word fire is in the name of the filter. It's like a British company, and it's a really nice filter. I got 2 5-stop NDs and then a circular polarizer for like shooting water, flowing water. So if I wanted to shoot it in daylight or if I wanted to shoot it, closer to dusk, I could take one. They say stacking filters ain't a real good idea, but I like the ability of taking half of that ND off. If you're getting close to sundown, you don't need 10 stops of ND. 5 is a lot more it gives you options. Firecrest, that's them. How you doing, Aaron? Yeah, it's the same ones I was using that day that we was all up there together. All right. Let's see here. Making sure I'm checking notes or comments, make sure I ain't missed any. Yeah, I've been over and took some photos of them doing the burnouts. Division of Format Tech, High Tech. I believe that's it. I think you're right. But I like them because they don't have a real strong color cast. They're pretty neutral in their color cast. They might have a hideous tiny tinge of green, but it's not enough that I even really worry about it. What I typically do is, because I'm trying to get the smooth water like we was doing last fall, I just white balance it onto the water where like the ripples make it look white. I just drop the dropper on that and make the white balance fit that and run with it. I just cheat. So have you been doing any landscape shooting, Aaron? I've been noticing you've been dropping some pictures on your Instagram account lately. Finally able to get out and do some photography. Break down this gear. Sweet. Use a shotgun or a camera? I haven't gotten any wildlife photos in quite some time. I took a bunch of bird photos. Nice. Dude, I don't know if I could run the D500 if I had a D850 sitting in my camera bag. That'd be tough. That D850, that was a nice machine, dude. I still aspire to acquire one of them at some point. I can't make my mind up if I want, because you know the D6 is going to be like one of the last DSLRs Nikon makes. They haven't even mentioned replacing the D850 with a better camera. Really interesting. Aaron says that the D500 will run circles around the D850 when it comes to wildlife photography. I thought the D850 got that super fast focusing that the D500 had. It didn't get it? I thought it did. That was one of the reasons I was kind of excited about it. There we go. But, there he goes. Close, but the D500 seems to do much better with birds in flight.
It was that code over there, 2134?
Yes.
It wasn't.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't have my phone.
Have you got to run the Z6 or Z7 in the area? I don't know anybody personally that's handled one yet. I watch a couple of YouTubers that seem to like them. You haven't had a chance either? Okay. I'm really waiting on, the only thing holding me back from getting the Nikon version is that says 1 and 2. Still shooting the same camera I was shooting that day we went out shooting fall colors. It's the same exact one, but that was the reason I really picked this one over the Z series, was because this one has 2 card slots. But it's a good camera. Yeah, it's not a great camera, but it is a good camera. It's there's deficiencies here and there that I wished I could improve. It doesn't do so great in low light. It starts generating those weird ISO noise deals where, like, in the dark shadows, it'll have the little green and blue and red pixels. You have to kind of paint your shadows if you do, unless you do a long exposure, and it'll clean that up if you do that long exposure noise reduction. and let it go through that whole process. But yeah, the ISO noise is kind of a pain. 6400 is about it with this camera. I've shot some at 10,000, but you got to keep the 4x6 is about as big as that's ever gonna print. I was gonna say something else. All the stuff that I carried on that trip, and I didn't use hardly any of it. I have an anamorphic lens. It's one of those Moment brand anamorphic lenses. It's for your iPhone. I've got the case for it too, so that it snaps right on the case. And I have yet to do anything significant with it. I played with it, and I really thought I was going to use this lens a lot. I actually took it with me on the trip because I thought I'll shoot some B-roll with this. Nope. I don't know why I keep forgetting to use it. I just keep forgetting to get this lens out. I had such high hopes for it too. Lugged around all these heavy monsters. There's that 55mm f1.8 Pentax lens that I bought. Oh man, they beat it up. My lens cap, it's all caved in now. It was flat when I bought the lens. They've treated my camera bag rough at the airport where they do the inspections. I'll take it to the machine shop and straighten that out with a rubber mallet. Still works. Man, that bugs me. Filter thread's still good. Huh. That's a great lens. If you like manual glass, I was shocked at how good it performs for like $25. That's a sleeper. Pentax Asahi 55mm f1.8. Amazing little lens for 25 bucks. But yeah, I just found out the longer that trip went on, the less stuff I took with me every day. And it got to the point, like with this video rig, I carried it every day, shot with it. First thing I done, took the light off, got rid of the light, because the sand is so bright, I didn't have to fill in underneath my hat brim, because my hat brim will cast a shadow over my eyes, you know. You get that dark eye kind of effect when you're filming in the daytime around here. So that's why I added the little light, because it fills in that dark raccoon eye kind of effect. So then I'm carrying it around like this for 2 or 3 days, and I realized if I take this aluminum mount off, I can shed another half a pound or more. So what I wound up taking off was I took the Arca Swiss mount off, took the aluminum bracket off, and mounted the GoPro straight onto this and operated it like that for about 3 or 4 days. And then I realized, I've got enough video clips. I kind of just want to just take photos. So then I just quit bringing this all together. I actually took it apart, broke it down, and stuck it in the camera bag in the hotel room and just left it. But I never did use the light. I brought it all that way and carried it around all over Israel. And literally, we went through the security at Frankfurt, and the guy was searching the camera bag and found it was on in the camera bag. That's the only time I turned it on, was accidentally going through the airport. You be fabbing up. Let's see what Aaron's got there. I loaded my backpack up, Lookout Mountain last weekend. Never dug into it. Shot everything with the 24-70. That sounds very familiar. You'll be fabbing up new stuff. Yeah, I got some projects I'm working on. Which this was a quick and dirty camera mount. I made me a bar that allows me to add my light beside it, and then I just made me a. Whoop, I made me up a thumb screw. It's just the bolt run through it, and then I've Loctited the bolt into the aluminum disc to create a thumb screw. And there's a little boss on the back side right here, so it bears on that. It doesn't bottom out on the whole thing. And that just simply goes through that hole, screws into the 1/4 20 stud socket on the bottom of the light. If I can not drop it while I put it together on camera. That allows me to set my light up, and I can index it if I want to break it loose and get it out of the way. Now it's 90 degrees out of time. And I like to run it like this a lot of the times because it protects this little cable, which is on the, here, there it is. Wow, that's really, really bright. There we go. Let's turn that down about 10,000 stops. It protects this cable, which is in that little adjustment, or not adjustment, coupling block that GoPro sells for a ridiculous amount of money, and that thing is real fragile. But yeah, this works really well. Plus, if you want to change the diffuser, they're just on with a magnet, and you can have the yellow one if you want it. And it's that quick to change it. It just sticks on the back. They're held on with little magnets. They're real easy to change that way. I really like this a lot. It was like 15 bucks on Amazon. It was very cheap. Works really well. I mean, variable power. What it doesn't have is variable color intensity. It don't give you color, but it does give you illumination. You adjust your color with the lens cap, which it works fine. It does good. For fill light, it works great. But yeah, this thing got pared way down by the end. And honestly, for the most part, most days it just stayed on the bus. I used it, like I said, I got 150 clips with it, but I got those in probably 5 of the 10 days, maybe 6. I took a bunch of video in Petra while we was there. We crossed the border over into Jordan, went up to Petra for a day, which you spend pretty much most of the day driving. From the time you start through the border crossing process until we got off the bus at Petra was about 3 hours. We went down to the Red Sea, and we crossed the border at Eilat, which is the town on the Red Sea, and went up. You go on the south side of the mountain range, and there's some, I don't remember the name of those mountains now. They told us the name of them. There's a huge mountain range, kind of separates Israel and Jordan. And we drove around the south side of them and then went up that valley on the other side where the big desert was. Beautiful. And I understand now how people can find like metals on the surface in deposits when they was mining, doing surface mining, because the mountains were like tectonic uplifts. So all the strata is rotated up at an angle, and the mountains are running up like that. And all these enormous veins of copper and iron are just stripes. The mountains look like they were painted with stripes, just this way and this way and this way. And it was huge green stripes of copper and huge reddish brown stripes of iron ore on the surface. All you had to do is go up there and start chiseling it out of the crack. It blew my mind. Such readily available metals right there on the surface. And there was a lot of it. I saw one mine the whole time we drove by all that. So it makes me wonder if it's in some kind of protected area. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was, because Aaron says it wonders if that's why the Romans claimed it. I'm pretty sure that's why they did, because that's a huge resource that they had ready access to. There's no telling how many Roman swords were made out of that iron deposit. Well, it wasn't just one, there was dozens of them like that. We drove by those mountains for probably 20 or 30 minutes, just literally striped with giant ore, veins of ore. Like I said, I saw copper and iron, and there was a bunch of sulfur sprinkled in there, because you'd see yellow areas. You see a lot of yellow in the rock, and that would be the sulfur. It was interesting to see that. I'd never seen it that prevalent. You know, I've seen iron bands around here, but they're like this thick, seriously. A 1/2 inch wide iron band in sandstone around here would be thick. There, it was probably, seriously, excuse me, I guarantee you it would be at least 25, 40 feet wide, maybe more. Because you start to lose depth perception As you're looking across a valley at a mountain, you don't really know how far away the mountain is, and you don't know how high up that is on that mountain. You kind of lose your concept of size. You're just guessing, but it was huge amounts of metals just waiting to be picked out of the rock. But yeah, Petra was really interesting. You got to wonder what provoked people to build that stuff like they did. It's carved all this beautiful architecture into the rock. Wow, the jet lag is beating me up. But the little tour guide in Jordan kept telling us, because they didn't know how to build with blocks. They just carved it out of the bedrock. When you look at the complex geometry, those people knew how to do math. They could math real good. To be able to start at the top of a mountain and cut away the rock and leave behind these beautiful ornate front facades, these people could do math. They could figure out how to make a cinder block. You know, you can cut a stone just as square as you can cut that building dead square. You know, yeah. I think they did it to show their technological skill or something, because it was incredible what they built. And we didn't see it all. We didn't have time. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just tired for no reason. I've been getting good rest, I guess just because I ain't reacclimated to this time zone yet. Let's see. But I'm going to have a bunch of videos on the channel about that as soon as I get time to start editing. I'm still sorting out the pictures, and I've got to go through the memory cards again because I've got 3 days worth of photos, one of which has my sunrise on the Jordan River in it. And I think it also has the Jericho photos as well. I'm pretty sure it does. All of those photos, I ain't found them yet. So I'm gonna go through the cards again and make sure I didn't miss a folder that had some in it and forgot to transfer them. But dude, it's literally thousands of pictures. It's gonna take a few minutes to go through them. Then I get to figure out which ones I want to put in the photo book, and get the book uploaded and printed. But yeah, there'll be videos there because, like I said, I got way too much footage not to use some of it. I'm going over my notes, make sure I didn't forget something. So you guys have any questions that I may not have broached? I think the point I was trying to make talking about this setup here was that when you're doing a guided tour, well, I had a fellow photographer in the group. He had a Canon, I think it was a 6D Mark II, and he had the 24-105 lens on it. And then he also brought literally a Sony RX100, like Mark III or 4. It was one of the little point and shoot ones that the lens runs in and out. He dropped that Canon camera the second day and broke the lens off of it. Yeah, it was sad. It's a really sad day. He ran the rest of the trip with the little bitty Sony camera, and by the end, he actually said, "I'm kind of glad that I dropped that camera on the second day instead of the 8th, because," he said, "this thing was so much more fun to use because it wasn't killing him to carry it." You know, this is a fairly large camera system for snapshots. I could have easily pulled the battery grip, just throw the 2 batteries in my pocket and made the camera a lot smaller, but I was just lazy, and so I'll just leave them in the camera. Plus I can charge them directly through a port, and I've got the charger in the bag. It just plugs in right here in that little hole. And if you run it down till you start drawing on the one in the camera body, this charger won't charge the one in the body, but what you can do is charge these up and then switch the body one with one of the ones in the pack, and then it'll top that one off. You know, if you're in a hotel room, you got time. But it worked out to where I really enjoyed shooting with this setup and not really having to worry about carrying a bunch of lenses and figuring out what I needed and all of that, and just kind of get the camera out of the way, you might say, and just get photos. It was just because I didn't really have time. Yeah, that little Nikon 1 is a great camera for that kind of thing. Perfect. Well, that's kind of what they built it for. And it's only this big. It's a little tiny thing. It's cute as a button. And you've got quite a suite of lenses for it. I think you actually had several lenses for it that day. You showed it to me. You brought it last fall. 'Cause I remember you getting it out, little bitty thing. Great looking little camera. Actually took really good photos because you shot some photos with it. But yeah, I kept kicking around getting a X-H1, or I actually looked at the X Pro 2 second-handed, or X Pro 1s, excuse me. Because the X Pro 1s are about $700-800 right now. So I could get one of them real reasonable for a backup camera. Wow, F-mount adapter would be nice because then all your F-mount lenses fit it. I wish they had a F-mount to AF mount or a Z-mount to F-mount AF screw drive focus adapter for the Z camera, because they don't have any way of driving the AF lenses, the screw drive focus lenses. That's another reason I don't like the Z series cameras. If I'm gonna buy a Nikon, I want one with a screw drive focus motor in the body. You know, D750, D810, D850, all of them run the screw focus motor in the body. Well, even the D7200, the D7000 family has the focus motor. Because my D7000 had it. You know, as long as you stick to that family of camera, all them AF lenses will still focus. And that's a frustration. And they forgot the mirror. It has limitations, yeah. Well, there's some lenses you can't adapt, like the 8mm fisheye, where that thing protrudes that far into the camera body, right up to the film playing on the film camera. But I get your point. But yeah, if you're gonna, I'll tell you something else I learned. If you're gonna run one of these and do your photography on a guided tour trip, do not use one of these straps. This is the Peak Design camera strap, and the Achilles heel of it's this little metal ring right here. The strap itself is great, works fine, but actually you can see it right now. It's performing the problem. See that? The D-ring is supposed to look like that, as you can tell. I had it where you can see it better. Okay. Mine's old enough it didn't have the little plastic shields that goes over the clip. Apparently you can get them shields now to prevent this from happening, and you can see it now. What it does is, if I get that turned right, there we go. The little cord section gets into the D-ring and it slowly works its way around, and it actually unthreads itself and falls off. And it did it once on me in Israel. It actually came off. I went to sling the camera because I carry it crossbody so that it don't flop back and forth. It'll stay put. It'll ride right there. And then I can just pick it up and take my photo, and then I can set it right back down. I went to set it down, and when I put tension on the sling, the camera hinged away because I had a hold of it. It just moved away, and the sling just kind of started slipping over my shoulder, and so I didn't drop the camera because of it. But yeah, it come apart. I had to put it all back together, and it's done already separated to that point again already. You know, you can see what it's doing. That's a problem. Yeah, the Nikon triangles, Fuji now has basically that. They've got the little plastic cover that goes on it that keeps it from slipping around and keeps it oriented properly. That Peak Design, actually, supposedly you can email them and they'll send them to you for free. But I actually have been looking at a different camera strap by a company in England. I can't remember their name now. But it's like a corded rope. And they use key rings, that's what it looks like. It's round key rings. Interesting. Has it got the little plastic covers that goes over the little metal rings? But I'm thinking seriously about doing what you said. Nikon's triangular rings with the covers, or the Peak Design, get some new rings with the covers, because it definitely needs to be addressed. As I was thinking, what I wanted to do here was, if nothing else, I was going to go get some small key rings and just put key rings on it for the time being, because the round key rings seem to work pretty good for a lot of people. But yeah, the strap actually rides or carries really well, the Peak Design strap. It runs really good for what I did. I never really made many adjustments here. Never really got to where I wanted to like adjust it up or down or whatever, so I never really changed any of that. But I do like this whole quick release functionality deal where you can take it off by just pushing that in. At times, I'd take the sling off just because I would want to be able to like shoot real low angle or whatever. Left side yes, but right side no, since I have the grip strap. Oh, okay. I thought about getting one of them. Is that one of the ones that just goes around your wrist so you don't drop the camera? Because I thought that looks pretty good. I thought about doing that. You'll see people do this, do the whole thing where they'll cross their hand back and forth a bunch of times and just take up the camera till it's up here somehow. I've seen that done too. Well, with the Nikon straps, they're small enough that it'll do that. It'll kind of tie around your wrist, but this one's a little bulky for that. But other than that, the camera worked great. I had no real problems out of it. Let me think. No. That knob, I did that. Like I said, I think I dropped it at some point and dinged that knob. Okay, good. Goes over the top of your hand. Okay, yeah. That's what I thought it was. C2C Disciple says Pete does the triangles now, emptied his parts bag and he saw one. Follows the outside of the grip and goes to the bottom. Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about now. Those are pretty nice. It's called the clutch. Yeah, okay. What? There we go. Put them right here. All right. There you go. Yeah. All right. Chores. You never seem to get out of them. Like Aaron said. I thought about that. If I was shooting street, I would like to have that, or have the one that just goes around the wrist, you know. But if I'm not shooting street, I like to have this. I like the camera to be slung crossbody, and it'll sit right here on, kind of right over my left front pocket. That way it doesn't ride on the belt buckle and it's not on the side of my body swinging. It'll just sit there while you walk. It doesn't really move around. And I'll normally take my thumb and run it inside the strap and just kind of rest my hand on it, and it keeps it from bouncing. And it's out of the way. And it just raises straight up real easy. I really like that style of camera carry. But I do like a lot of times if I'm shooting street photos, I'll take the strap completely off and just run it and just carry it in my hand. And that's why I like the idea of that clutch or the wrist strap, because then it just doesn't slip out of your hand. Nice. Now you're gonna have me going on Amazon once I get done with the live stream and looking up that clutch. See, Aaron is the guy, so that you guys will know who he is. He's the guy who got me to using these. Up till I had linked up with Aaron's life here, I had never touched an Arca Swiss mount. And now every tripod I have, the one this iPhone mount is on, is in an Arca Swiss base. This little bitty Manfrotto, Pixie, whatever, I've put an Arca Swiss base on it because of Aaron. Because it's convenient as crap. Yes, you created a monster. Look here, let me show you something. I wanted to be able to mount my GoPro, so I made me a custom Arca Swiss base that I could put this arm on, that I could mount my light with. Made all of that because I couldn't buy the one I wanted. But yeah, and I like this particular mount because it has the level. And with this little thing, I'm setting it on all sorts of uneven terrain, and I'll set it to where this is in the front. You can see how it's right in the front. And I'll set the tripod up. I'll just set it on the surface, get it happy wherever it's gonna be. And then I'll just loosen this up and level it to that bubbles level like I want. And I've leveled the camera relative to the environment. It works so well. I really like these little Arca Swiss mounts, especially. They're not real expensive. And they just work. And it allows me to immediately move the GoPro to this big Manfrotto Be-Free or one of any number of tripods I have at home. I just bought them off Amazon. But yeah, he's the one I have to thank for that. It's all him. You got it to save you from getting the claw or helping my wife shoot a wedding or event. Oh, okay. So do y'all prefer the clutch? And that's the one that's just basically going over the back of your fingers while you're on the grip. It would be basically like that, right? That's the clutch you're talking about, isn't it? It would look like that. And it's just hooking to the bottom of the camera right here, into that little space there, I guess. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll be on Amazon after the stream's over. I'll be sorting that problem out next. Let me see here. Did you get a Peak Design Arca Swiss plate for the bottom of your camera when you got the strap? Nope. I did not. I have no plate on this one. I was hoping I could hook it. The Fuji has this bar for tying your strap to the bottom, give you that third point. I was hoping I could hook it straight to that, and that way it'll be kind of cleaner layout. I don't leave the D810. I keep a plate on, but this one I don't. And I've got a couple of those D200s that I've been playing with a little bit, and I've got a plate on one of them. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't have that. I'll look at that too. That's interesting. But I learned I guess the key takeaway from that whole trip was you pare down your camera gear, and then you take away half of it, and then you take away half again, until you get down to a camera with a lens, with a sling to put it on your person, and leave the rest of it behind. Find you a good universal lens that you can use for about all scenarios. A mid-size prime like the 55 millimeter. If I had to pick a prime, it'd probably be this 55 f1.8, just because I can back up and still get a decent composition. 18 millimeters seem to be a really favorite focal length with that lens, which is what, about 27 millimeters in a full frame. You do all that jiving around, but it's just because it's convenient. I could rack it in and get a wide angle shot, you know. But if I was gonna do general photos, I'd probably run the 55 because it would be kind of portrait-y. Gives you a little bit of a portrait look, you know. You get a little bit less, you know, your nose is pulled in a little bit more. It's not as wide. You know, you don't get the facial distortion that you do with the wider angle stuff. And it would just produce more pleasing photos of the wife and daughter, you know. I have to think of that sort of stuff, so. But yeah, the 18 to 55 worked great for me. Even with its variable aperture, I didn't really see a problem with it most of the time. Like I said, if I racked it out, I just rolled the ND till the histogram moved back to the center and took the photo. It just worked. It was fast. It was actually very fast to make adjustments like that. And once I kind of got into the groove, the only thing I wished I had was a lens hood. I thought about making a custom lens hood for it, just so I could keep from touching it. The only reason I want the lens hood is to keep from touching the front element of the ND filter, because I kept getting fingerprints on it. Like I said, I bet I went through 25 of them stupid lens cleaners. But yeah, it got a lot more fun really fast when I got rid of all the other gear and quit carrying it around. It simplified things and made it more about the trip and less about the gear I was toting, you know. But I appreciate you guys checking in with me tonight and hanging out for a couple of, well, let me see. It says 93 minutes. We've been doing this for an hour and a half. And I'm trying to go to sleep sitting here in the chair because I'm still suffering from jet lag like a genius. Aaron, are you still here? If you are, we need to link up at some point in the not too distant future and go shoot landscapes. That's cool. I was actually still in Israel last Saturday. I kind of cheated. I scheduled out those 3 videos from the last live stream until today. I've shot all of them the week before we left and just scheduled them so that there would be content to drop while I was gone. Shoot, yeah, if you're in Hotlanta, dude, and you're going to be going up into the Blue Ridge, shoot me an email or holler at me. I think we still have phone numbers. Text me. I'll do my best to be able to come over. We'll get a day out in the wilderness. Maybe shoot some snow. Get something interesting like that. But I've got to get out to Arkansas at some point and go shoot photos of birds with bass angler. Yeah, no kidding. Let's do that. I ain't talked to you, in a year? One notebook is full of notes about videos. See, there's so much light. There you go. If I crack this back just a little bit, you can kind of see there's all this text. Of course, there's a page that ain't got no text on it. But you can see all these notes. That's for videos that I'm about to make. This is the new notebook, and it already has a whole section on a video I want to make. And this side, yeah, all this kind of dialogue. See all that? I still use notebooks. You can see all that text I wrote down. You know? But I'll put it in here, and that way I don't lose it, and then I can put it on the calendar. Let's see what it says here. C2C Disciple says it uses 24 to 120 f4 and 100 millimeter macro f2.8 as a second shooter, but used my 2850 and 70 to 210 and the 300. Try to get your low angle challenge today. Oh yeah. The low angle challenge runs till tomorrow, so technically it'll close Sunday or Saturday, you know. And I've got several entries. I haven't replied to anybody on them yet, mainly because, long story short, I was out of town until Tuesday night. Wednesday morning, I hit the ground running because the shop took a lightning strike, and I've been working on replacing melted wires and burn up electronics for 3 days. And we're at about 90% capacity now because of it. One of the milling machines is dead. We're probably going to have to replace the pendant control and the CPU in it. Yeah, $15,000. But yeah, hopefully the insurance will be there for us. Long story short, we've already dropped about $2,500 on like routers and modems and phones and wire and time, and just it burned up a bunch of stuff. But now I'm about caught up on all that stuff, so I'm gonna get back in the groove of things. Aaron said, what is this challenge? Last Saturday, my video is a photography challenge, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to correct a mistake I made. The first time I tried to do challenges was about a year and a half ago. I tried to come up with a way of getting basically viewer participation in the channel is what it boils down to, and it's better interaction. Instead of me just talking to you guys and you guys listening, it's a two-way exchange, and I can feature you guys on the channel some, you know, and show off your work as well as what I'm shooting, you know, and it's less about me and it's more about the community, you know. So this time what I've done is I've kind of rebooted it, and I'm going to be a little more diligent. I let it run too long, and you know, I was putting a month on the submission time frame, and people would forget, and it just drug on too long, and it just wasn't. It died pretty quickly. After about 2, it kind of fizzled to nothing. So this time it's going to be open for submissions for a week, and then Sunday I'm going to go through the photos, and depending on how many I get, you know, in the beginning you don't get a lot, so I can take them and incorporate them all into the video, since I'll have, I think, probably 10 or 12 is what we're looking at right now. I've got some pretty interesting photos so far. And then I'll build the video based on that, and then the next Saturday or the Saturday after that, I'm going to put about a 2-week span between them, so that it isn't just one after the next, after the next, after the next, you know, and that way you get a little free time to go play too, you know. And then I'll, you know, maybe one a month is how it'll work, because you'll do it and then it runs a week, and then you build the video and upload it, then you give a couple of weeks off before you do the next one. And I'm thinking that kind of timetable won't put so much pressure on everybody, and you'll get better participation. So that's what I'm trying this time. But the subject from last week was low angle. Low angle is relative, and it leaves a lot of room for interpretation, but the idea is something low angle. And you can use a photo that you've already shot. Say you've got a nice studio photo that you set up, you know, 6 lights on, and there was colored gels, and you had models and a makeup artist, and it's a really smoking photo. I don't have a problem with it. Now, later on, I want to get it to where we capture the photo during the week. because I didn't spell that out in the beginning of this one. But that's the goal, is to basically, at the end of my videos, I say it, get your camera out and go take a picture with it. So the goal is to not use an archive photo at the end, but it is to capture the photo. But since you're late to the party, use one that you already have if you ain't got one already. But yeah, it'll be open till the end of the day tomorrow. That I'll use it as an excuse to go take one tomorrow just to get me out of the house and take one. Oh, good Lord. C2C Disciple said, ouch, that their electric company single phased them a couple of times. If you're running 3-phase power and they drop a leg, that could do catastrophic things like almost immediately to you. If you have 3-phase equipment, that would suck terribly bad. Yeah, I'd have a real problem with that. Where we are, the way I'm a single phase shop. We make our 3-phase in-house because where we are, the 3-phase isn't available. So you can't drop a phase off of a single phase drop because of the way they do it. It's a single tap on the transformer and they center tap and ground it. So if you've got one phase, you automatically get the second one. There's no way to drop one leg or the other unless a wire breaks. You know, you could have a wire burn into out at the pole, but that'd be the only way you'd drop a phase there. But yeah, that would be terrible to have 3-phase power and them drop a phase out. That would be really bad, like lawsuit kinds of bad, especially if they did it multiple times. I'd have words. I've never understood how a utility can cease to provide service and then still charge you full price at the end of the month. But I really don't want to get off on that rant. Oh. But yeah, Aaron, if you are going to do that, then the email address, just watch last Saturday's video. It says photo challenge in the name or something, and it kind of goes over the parameters, and then in the description of the video is my email address that I'm having everybody send them to. It's the georgiaphotog@gmail.com email. Send it to that email and just put something about low angle photo in the title, and that way I'll know that's what it's for, because I'm leaving all of those marked as unread so I can find them real easy when I go to pull the photos out. I haven't even took them out of the email yet to put them in a folder because I've just now gotten to where I can offload my memory cards from my trip. I started doing that today. Whew, it's been a really fun week. Let's see what we got here. Good hearing the stream and about the trip. I'm still working on culling my bag for trips. We're liking the cheap 70 to 210 F4 and doing it. Dang my eyes, yeah. Well, thank you for checking in. And yeah, I feel your pain. I love this lens. And with the EVF and the XT3, I can actually see through it. You know, I don't have to wear my glasses to get good compositions because of that. But I appreciate you guys watching me this long. It's been a lot of fun. But I'm gonna go in here and talk to Teresa for a little while. Sierra will be here in just a few minutes. Sierra got a job. She's at work. She works at a restaurant. Wow, nice. I have yet to buy any reversing mounts to where I can reverse my lenses. I saw somebody has a kit to where the mount has the filter thread, and then the other end has a cover that locks on to the camera lens mount that has a thread for a UV filter, so you keep trash off of your rear element. I saw it was like a little kit that you buy, and it's all anodized blue. Yeah, well, thank you guys. I appreciate you. It has. It's been a lot of fun. This is David, the Georgia photographer. And if you stuck it out this long, give me a thumbs up. that's down there. Well, good night. And get your camera out and go take a picture with you. All right? We'll see y'all later. I'll do it. I'll tell him you said hi. Good night.